Welcome back to irishracing.com and our day 2 preview of the Grand National meeting at Aintree. Now, Danny Mullins is joining us once again. The last time we spoke actually was after your win on Flooring Porter, your second Cheltenham Festival win. So I just want to get a quick reflection from you on that. And I mean, how was it after the race? Also that praise you got from Ruby Walsh especially. I mean, how much have you been able to kind of bask in the glory of it? Or have you just been able to just move on?
Yeah, it was fantastic. You know, the horse put in a fantastic performance on the day. And I suppose the main thing about Cheltenham this year was that the owners really got to enjoy it. You know, they weren't there last year and they were very excited at home, but to have the whole syndicate there, any friend that they knew came over from Ireland, and that was really special to see them thoroughly enjoy it. You know, for me to win, I suppose going there as a favourite, you know, maybe a bit more pressure on going for the race. But I think I believed in the horse all the way up to it, and he delivered. You know, I suppose Ruby pointed out well what happened through the race, and he has his quirks and that. But the main thing is that he has his engine and he delivers and keeps galloping strongly to the line.
And how is he, I mean, after the race as well? Obviously, he's running at Aintree as well. So how did he come out of Cheltenham and looking ahead to his race at Aintree?
Yeah, he's came out of Cheltenham well. Gavin is happy with him. And, you know, he's back to Aintree. Probably a different type of track again. But I think he's in good nick. And there's every chance he could go and win again in Aintree. You know, he's always going to have his quirks. And he didn't win after Cheltenham last year. So that's obviously, you know, something he's going to have overcome. But I think mentally he's getting a lot more mature, and physically he's improving all the time as well. So I think there's no reason to say he won't win an Aintree. It's just keep him in the right mindset and the rest should flow. Great
stuff. Well, we'll cover the Flooring Porter race in more detail later on. But first of all, we're going to talk about the Grade 1 top novices hurdle on day 2 of the festival. Now here, John Bon is lining up, declared amongst the 9. He's the touching odds-on favourite, around even money at the moment. Danny, I want to get your view. How much do you think his effort in the Supreme actually took out of him ahead of this race at Aintree?
It was a very truly run Supreme, but that was on good ground the first day. I don't think there was much soft in that, and the time might reflect that how good the ground was. But yeah, I think he's the one that's going to take all the beating here. Well, he was beaten a long way in Cheltenham by Constitution Hill, but I think, you know, I give him a big chance. I thought he would actually beat Constitution Hill going into Cheltenham. I don't think there's anything here that might be able to beat him. El Fabiolo runs for Willie Mullins. Paul Townend takes the ride. Won a fairly weak maiden hurdle in Tremor. It was heavy ground that day. Looks a horse with plenty of potential, but he's going to need a fair performance to jump up to this standard. If you're looking for one to beat John Bon, I think First Street here had a big run behind Stateman in the county hurdle. He has a good chance of making it to a graded level, and actually runs off the same rating as John Bon. I know that's coming out of a handicap, but I think he could be the one to give John Bon most to think about here.
Yeah, and Vincent, I want to bring you in here as well. Vincent Finegan of irishracing.com, of course. You are backing John Bon here. I mean, do you share the view of Danny as well? There's not really much opposition in this race?
Yeah, a little bit of opposition. I find it a bit odd. I think, first of all, I think John Bon is probably the best horse in the race. I've no doubt about that. Whether there's he's still feeling something from Cheltenham, because it was a very good run, although he was in a different parish to Constitution Hill on the day. It was still a good performance, and you'd expect that to be good enough to beat these, but the question is how much it took out of him. The other thing here is the El Fabiolo. A bit worried about that. I can't see that as it's currently strong second favourite, and I'm not seeing that. Tremor winner is the first thing. Heavy ground is another thing. He's not going to have either of them here. It certainly won't be anything like Tremor. And then the other thing is a Hud first time. That's a question mark as well. It'd be a little bit of a squiggle for me. I wouldn't like to see that. I'm not quite sure what it's about. But for me, I'm against El Fabiolo as being second best. First Street is the obvious one, having finished second in the county hurdle, the State Man. That was a good run. But there's another horse in here, might have a squeak at a price. It's a nice price, is Surprise Package. The stable won this last year with Belfast Banter. Peter Fahey, and it wasn't that far behind. It was only, I think, it's 6 lengths behind First Street. It's £2 worse off, which shouldn't make a whole lot of difference. But at the relative prices, and looking each way with 9 runners, thinking 12, 14 to 1 surprise package might be a little squeak, but realistically, John Bond, if the horse is right, should win.
Should do, yeah. All right, well, let's move on to the next feature, the Grade 1 Mildmay Novices Chase. Now, this one, only 4 go to post, but what a fascinating contest it will be. Brave Man's Game, of course, swerved Cheltenham because of the conditions there. But yeah, I mean, Danny, how much do you think that run in the mud did actually take out of L'Homme Presse?
It'll be interesting to see, and I'd actually love to see L'Homme Presse or High Seigneur come out and beat Brave Man's Game, given the fact that, you know, they had their go in Cheltenham. To me, you don't non-runner horses in Cheltenham with a bit of rainfall, and maybe if the ground was firm or something like that, but maybe Paul Nicholls will be rewarded here. I thought Brave Man's Game was going to be the one to beat the other two in Cheltenham, but the way L'Homme Presse won on the day, I'm not sure would Brave Man's Game have done it. And a High Seigneur, I don't think the old course in Cheltenham really played to his strengths. You know, it's a bit tighter up and down. I wonder, can he get into a better rhythm around Aintree, a flat track where his fences are just coming at him a bit more of an even keel? I think a High Seigneur has a chance of turning around the form with L'Homme Presse, but being fresh, he's been very good in what was a difficult season for Paul Nicholls, and he's probably been the flag bearer all the way through. I think they're going to struggle to beat Brave Man's Game here.
And Stephen Harris from Betting Expert, I'll bring you in as well. I mean, do you share that view? Do you think Brave Man's Game should be the strongest horse going into this one, given that it should be fresh after Cheltenham?
Yeah, I think freshness will count for plenty. I mean, there's 4 runners, Joe, which is very disappointing. The outsider, Fury Road, got beaten 4 fences last time we saw him 61 days ago, so he's very hard to fancy. I thought Ahoy Senior ran really well at Cheltenham, but he did have the run of the race, which with Brave Man's Game in the race here, I doubt he will. So I think it is a match between L'Homme Presse and Brave Man's Game. I think the prices are about right, 5-4 and 6-4. I think that's about what it is. I mean, Brave Man's Game finished second behind Ahoy Senior at Aintree last season when they met, but Brave Man's Game was ridden right out the back there. I think they found the key to him over fences. He's a brilliant jumper. He's 4 out of 4. Nicholls is going well. I agree with Danny about Nicholls taking his. He spat all his dummies out the pram at Cheltenham when the ground got really testing. But maybe it's turned out to be the right thing to do for Brave Man's Game here.
Yeah, lovely stuff. All right, well, let's move on to the next race on the card. So that's the Marsh Chase. Now here, Danny, how much do you like the look of Fakir Duderi? Do you think that is the worthy favourite going into this race?
Yeah, definitely. You know, I suppose his Ascot win is maybe the one that questions it for me. He's kind of on and off the bridle that day, and you know, had he not run there, I think all of his other runs are very good. You know, he ran away from me very easily in Clonmel back in November. He was 4th in quite a hot John Durkin, and went and was 2nd again to Allaho in Thurles. I think all that form reads really well. I'm just wondering why and why wasn't he a bit more impressive in Ascot the last day? That's the only question mark. But I think, you know, they've made the right choice to skip the rematch with Allaho in the Ryanair and are coming straight here. Benicia Williams' horse, Funambule Savola, ran a great race in the Champion Chase as well, but I don't know, was that a little bit of a fluke? Will it be able to reproduce here? I think you have to be with Fakir all the way.
Now, Stephen and Ed, I know you don't always agree on everything, but you are actually quite well agreed on this and looking at a long shot in this race. So yeah, Ed, take us through your pick in this one.
I have no idea about that. No, generally, again, this is never a race where I've got massive question marks about all these. I mean, Fakir Duderi's the worthy favourite, been there, done it. I think he'd want the ground a bit softer than it is. A lot of his forms come on deep run. Funambule Savola, really good run over 2 miles. Whenever he's gone up to 2.5, the old petrol lights come on. Captain Giddis seems to get found out every time he goes to that big class. How St. Calvados is around 7-1 in a few places for this. I don't know. I mean, he's just looked gone in the game. Sir Royale's 10. All Mankind's been absolutely hopeless this season. And then you're into double figure prices. And yeah, I think myself and Stephen are both with Hitman here. I just think is just the forgotten horse. Bryony Frost will be taking the ride. Still young, fresh legs. I'm really well in the Tingle Creek. Form obviously early in the season ties him really closely with Eldorado Allen when just narrowly picked on the line that day. That form's obviously worked out really well. And then obviously Chase Home, Thunderbolt Civilla last time out in Newbury. But again, kind of similar angle with a few of my tips this week. The trip, I think, is key. He looked really outpaced and then kind of got going again and got a second wind over the minimum trip 2 miles at Newbury there on decent ground. I think good to soft, up to 2.5. The Nichols team again, we talk about it. They were in their proper malaise at the back end of January into the start of February. They're much more firing on all cylinders. I generally think it's a massive price at 12-1. And obviously, I'm not privy to kind of inside information and the riding arrangements, but I presume Harry Cobden would have had the choice. Surprises me that he has gone with St. Calvados here, because, yeah, Hitman, I wouldn't be shocked at all if there was a lot more improvement to come from this horse. Let's not forget again, similar theme, Joe, he's only 6 on an upward trajectory. A lot of horses in here are kind of scratch around for form, have been around a long time, and are kind of, I can't imagine are getting any better. So, kept fresh, swerved Cheltenham, upward curve, young legs, all those kind of angles. Got to be a bet for me at 12-1.
And Stephen, just a quick word as well. Do you share all those views? Got any other insights on Hitman and why you've gone for a bit of a longer shot than you normally do?
Well, yeah, I agree with everything Ed says. I think there's 2 runners here. The favourite, who I respect, Fakir Dudarez, who's very impressive, although the race fell apart last year when he won, and Hitman, who's got a brilliant makeup. The key for me is the way this race will be run. Is Editor du Gite and All Mankind are both lunatic front runners. They're going to go a real mad pace up front. Brian, he'll sit motionless, hopefully well out the back, and pick them up late. I think bound to run well, a really good each way bet. The second in, Funambule Savola, was second to Energamine. Well, there wasn't really a second in that champion chase. That form amounts to nothing. Captain Guinness, I still think he's not the most fluent jumper. St. Calvados has got loads to prove. Not sure about the trip for Sco Royale. So I don't think there's that many runners. I think Hitman is bound to run well each way, 12-1, probably the nap of the day.
Lovely stuff. All right, well, let's move on to the next feature race. That's the 440, the Sefton Novices Hurdle. Now, previous winners of this race, of course, likes of Ahoy Senor, you've got Champ and Santini as well. So, Danny, just looking at the market, I mean, do we have a worthy favourite here in Banbridge?
Yeah, I think he is. He was probably a job horse for Cheltenham. In fairness to Joseph, he's placed him very well. Gained that handicap experience in Leopardstown at Christmas. Came out and won maybe a weak grade 2 in Navan, but won quite convincingly in Cheltenham, and I think is deserving to be favourite here. Gelino Bello, I just think there's holes in that form. You know, won nicely last day, but I don't think he's good enough. Maybe if the Nichols horses are really starting to hit the frame and prove, but the one I like is Skytastic for Sam Thomas. Won nicely in Doncaster and backed that up again in a more competitive race in Ascot. You know, doesn't do things over flashy, but has a great habit of winning. I think there's potentially more to come from him here.
That's it. Sometimes that's all that matters, right? Getting over the line first. Doesn't matter how it's done, but hopefully that should be a good pick for you, Danny. But I know Stephen and Ed, once again, amazingly, you actually agreed on an outsider here. So, Stephen, take us through your selection for the Sefton.
Well, I think Ed must be bugging my phone, Joe. It's unbelievable. Or is it the other way around, Bats? I've gone for Bridge North. I just thought it's a massive price. This looks at least 5-1 the field. There's lots of different form lines from all the top novice races. A very, very hard race. And Bridge North is a horse I like. He's got one blot on his card, which was at Doncaster. Well, regular listeners will know I'm not mad on the ground at Doncaster. It's been in appalling condition for the whole of the winter. And a lot of horses have run unaccountably badly on it. And I think you can put a line through that run. He bounced back over an inadequate trip last time. He basically is a 3-miler. He's going to be a cracking chaser. He's got a line of form earlier in the season at Ludlow with Green Book, who has franked it several times since. They're very closely matched. One of them's about 8-1, and Bridge North is going to be about 50-1. So for me, I think the price disparity is too big, and Bridge North should run really well.
Well, we'll definitely keep an eye on that, especially if we're back playing each way in the race. All right, guys, let's look for the best of the rest now. So any feature races or any races that we've not touched on? Vincent, I'll bring you in here as well. Any kind of standout picks for day 2 or races that really intrigue you?
Yeah, the Topham is one. Very interesting race. Willie Mullins has won it the last 2 years. He won it with Cadmium. Well, it's 3 years ago because there was no race in that, or in 2020. So he's Cadmium and Live, Love, Laugh are his last 2 winners of the race. And he runs a couple in this, but the one I like is the top weight, Royal Rendezvous. Danny should know a lot about this horse. He's ridden it several times. He rode it last time it ran in Clonmel in November when it finished second to Fakir Didari's. Interesting horse. I'd be surprised if it's not involved. Paul Townend is booked to ride it, but I would expect that to be thereabouts at a decent price.
And Danny, let's talk about your ride on day 2. Can you just tell us about that in the Topham?
Yeah, Annamix I ride in the Topham. Good jumper. Can be a slightly weak finisher at times. Can flatten out, hopefully, as the rain is starting to miss Aintree. I think that increases his chance. But, on his last couple of runs, he probably needs to improve a little bit more. I think Royal Rendezvous, he'll definitely be suited by the fences, but his tendency to jump right is a slight negative. I know there's 2 or 3 long straights, but he just needs to get Beecher's, Finehaven, Canal turn right. Well, get him going left. He jumps a little bit to the right, and if he can get through there in a reasonable position, I think he has a big chance of winning the race. But just his tendency to jump right, it'll be win or lose part of the race for him.
Well, obviously, Danny, what you did on 4 Import, I think we know you're capable of keeping a horse going in the right direction. So hopefully you do well in the Topham. But now we're going to move on to our tips of the day. So Stephen, I'll start with you just to run through your picks for day 2 of the Aintree Festival.
Yeah, starting off in the 3:30, Hitman is the betting expert in that, as we've mentioned. He's got a great makeup, sit out the heat of what will be a mad pace up front with All Mankind and Editor G, 12-1 each way. Probably the best bet of the day for me. In the 4:05, I really like Mr. Coffee. He was very unlucky in the Kemboy at Cheltenham. He nearly got brought down at the second, and I thought he did really well to press at all. He's got a huge engine. Just a slight doubt that maybe that run he had a very hard race. You never know whether he's going to be able to repeat it, but he's got conditions to suit. I think they've always said about Mr. Coffee, he wants decent ground. When he's got it, he should have it at Aintree. And in the 4:40, we've already mentioned Bridge North, who could be any price on the exchange. I see the bookmakers are 33. Well, that probably means he'll be at least 60, 70, 80 on the exchanges. I'll definitely have him winning. I think he's unexposed over a trip, and Henry Daly's had a fantastic season.
Oh, you're tempting me to have a bet on that as well, Stephen. Good work. And Ed, I think you've already covered, well, Stephen's covered a couple of yours. Either he's copied your homework or you've copied his. But take us through your picks for day 2.
Yeah, in the 2:55, I'm with Braverman's Game. I think the ground's going to be crucial here. It looked like it was going to be really testing, which would have swung it massively in Lon Press's favour. Looks like we're going to get a blend of good and good to soft. I think Braverman's Game, one of the best jumpers of a fence I've seen from a novice in decades, and that's not an exaggeration. I mean, he really is exquisite over his fences. Jumps like an old hand. I think he'll jump them ragged. Hitman, again, we've touched upon each way selection there. For the Bryony Frost Paul Nichols combination at double figure prices in the Melling Chase. And then in the Topham, I've thrown one in here at a big price. Janica for the combination of Nicky Henderson and Daryl Jacob. But this is a horse who could be gone at the game. I'll get the negatives out of the way first. However, he's starting to look incredibly well handicapped. So was finished 4th in this race 3 years ago for £19 higher mark. He's rated 166 at his peak, this horse. He was a classy chaser off 143 here. He could feel like he's running loose. He was going to run in the Kim Muir. The ground went against him. They pulled him out and he comes here fresh. I'll be very, very interested in him. He's a huge price. I think he's 28-1. He'd be my each way selection there.
Lovely. More long shots from Ed. Absolutely happy days. And now, Vincent, we'll finish off day 2 with your tips of the day, please.
Yeah, the first thing I just noted about that one Ed mentioned, Janica in the Topham, that could definitely turn something around. It really has dropped in the weights, and first-time blinkers might just rekindle some of the old spark, so I wouldn't put anyone off that either. For me, my 3 for day 2 are John Bon in the 220. I just think even money is probably a fair bet. It's definitely the best horse in the race if Cheltenham hasn't taken too much out of it. The other one then is Fakir Didari's in the 330. Won the race last year. I don't see any reason why it won't win again. 6-4, really consistent horse. You'll get a run for your money at 6-4. Can't be too far away. And then the one I was going for, which Danny has put a slight negative into me about jumping right, but Royal Rendezvous, I wouldn't worry too much about the high weight the horse has as top weight. The last 3 winners of this have all carried 11 stone or more. So the weight's not particularly an issue. The jumping right could be, but hopefully Paul Townend can steer the horse around, and it's definitely a contender, all things being equal.
Lovely stuff. Well, best of luck to you guys with your tips, and of course to Danny riding at Aintree on day 2. Be sure to stay tuned because we will have our day 3 preview coming up on irishracing.com. And of course, if you do place any bets based on our experts' advice, please do gamble responsibly.